Vaughn Rush, professionally known as Sean Vaughn Carter, is an Army veteran, entrepreneur, male lead and entertainer, and international traveler. He currently lives in New York City and San Diego, California, although he frequently travels across the states. He graduated from the Frank Sinatra School of Arts High School in New York City and is pursuing his Master of Social Work at Fordham University. Vaughn served in the United States Army for 7 years, deploying to Iraq in 2011 as a behavioral health specialist and medic. For 6 years prior to the COVID pandemic, Vaughn owned and operated a backpackers hostel in San Diego, California. Currently, you can catch our guest go-go dancing in New York City, San Francisco, and abroad, as well as a male lead in pageants, nightclubs, and drag shows. His passions include travel, mental health, physical fitness, gay pride, and authenticity. Vaughn, I am so excited to have you on today's show. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. I've been waiting for this for like 20 years at this point. So
I know it feels like that. So let's tell our audience how we met. And by the way, I think I saw a quote that I thought you purposely posted and were thinking of me the other day. But I was actually in Vermont staying at a friend's cabin for 2.5 weeks. And I was on a sabbatical and I was writing my book. And I was there for 2 weeks by myself. And then my husband joined me. And now let me just say, while I was there, I wrote 28,000 words and 12 chapters. What you also need to know is this would have been 2019. I have not written a single word since, Vaughn. Because I am a destination only writer, you know? So anyway, I tell my husband I want to go into Stowe, Vermont, which is about 20 minutes away because I'm this massive snow skier. I love the mountains. It's October, November, I think. And so I just want to go to the area. And so we see this like restaurant / bar and we stop and decide, hey, we're going to have some drinks. Now, as you know, as a speaker, Vaughn, I read people really, really, really well. Like I can pick up on all the energy in the room. And over to the side is this guy and this woman, and they're just kind of keeping to themselves and having all this conversation. And I find myself wanting to find out more about you. But then I'm like, okay, I have introverted Scott next to me and he gets all jiggy when I get up in somebody else's business. And so I don't know if you remember this, but I literally waited for him to go to the bathroom and then I just attacked you.
Sounds about right.
I scooted my chair up next to you. I started asking questions. What did you think about that? I want to know, what's your honest answer at first?
To be honest, I am a very interesting person, and I know that. And everywhere I go, people have questions for me and want to know stuff, and everything. So I'm very used to it, and I always have a lot to say. So whenever people have to ask me questions or interview me, I was like, I could go for hours, just whatever you need to know. And I'm an open book, as you know. So
yeah, we found out a lot about each other right away, didn't we? Yeah, I think Scott came back from the bathroom and I had already volunteered to be your surrogate mother. We were going to plan our next vacation together. That's kind of how I roll on. All right. So I just read your bio and you're a male entertainer, an Iraq war veteran, and a very liberated person. Now, what I found interesting about you is you were in the Army and a gay man. And I think back in 2011?
For Iraq?
Yeah.
Yeah. 2011.
So tell me this. When did you come out as a gay Black man?
I've always been a little gay Black man, I guess. I went to performing arts high school and stuff like that. So I've kind of always been that for a while. Junior high, came into my own. I didn't really hide it in the military. I kind of came in, people didn't really care. You just had to not say certain things, and you'd be fine. And there's a lot of gay people that were serving in the military, which is why the pressure came to get rid of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, because there's so many people serving.
Absolutely. And for those people who don't know what Don't Ask, Don't Tell is, that's when President Obama, right? Didn't he sign that law in December 2010 and tell the nation that homosexuals would no longer fear discharge by the military by admitting their sexual preference?
Yeah, I believe he was the one that repealed it. I believe that.
Oh, he repealed it. He repealed it.
I believe Clinton had put it in place maybe 93 or something, and he was the one that repealed it. Yeah.
Gotcha. So then, okay, I want to go back a minute though. So people that you went to school with knew you were gay.
Yeah.
And you had a very supportive mother the entire time. I remember you telling me that.
Yes. My mother, I always credit her for being one of the reasons that I didn't really go awry in life, because I was a really erratic child, and I've become more mature and stable now through life experiences and entrepreneurship. But she did a lot to kind of keep me on tracks, because like I said, I could have been anywhere, everywhere, and I would not have been as successful as I am today if she didn't try as hard as.
Did you, and I'm asking because I have, people that I know that are gay, and they have struggled and still struggle with a lot of shame over how they were made. And I think a lot of it comes from not feeling that they have that support from others, or they can't even maybe come out as who they are. And it has affected them their entire life. Did you ever feel any of that shame or wonder why you were different growing up?
Well, I mean, I've always, been through that. The story of the gay child discovering themselves. I've had that, not as bad though, as a lot of other people, but I definitely had mine. I'm on the other spectrum of that now, where I feel extremely liberated. I feel extremely proud. One reason is because I know who I am. I also know that it's better to be gay than it is to be straight. It's more seasoning, as I say. There's a lot of stuff that straight people that have to deal with, and I'm like, not my problem. And just being able to be myself and defend myself as well helps, because a lot of people feel not physically safe sometimes with getting bullied and things of that nature. So.
Oh, yes. Now, what would you say to someone, an adult, who has maybe known this about themselves the whole time, but they have immense fear and feel like they will never be able to show who they truly are? And, I live in the Midwest, and it can be even harder, I think. But do you have, these would have to be just baby steps, but what can someone who feels that much fear to be who they truly are?
I can understand the fear, especially when it comes to religious places and other, places that make people feel unsafe if they were to be open. There's consequences that occur, but also the joy of being liberated is so much greater. And I think about all that I had to go through on a regular basis to get liberated, and how freeing that is. But looking back, and I'm like, okay, yeah, that was hard. Never thought I'd get through that. Oh, I thought it was over for me here in a bunch of different circumstances. But in the end, there's nothing greater than being free. There's nothing greater than being liberated. Yeah. And it's not going to be an easy road depending on where you live. Some places still have unpaved roads, if you like a little metaphor.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I follow you, of course, on Instagram, and we're going to give all the links for that at the end of this show. But I don't know if you know, I'm like clicking on your stories all of the time. Now, Vaughn, I have to admit, I think I told you this when we were having some drinks, Moscow mules for me. Like, okay, I'm just going to go there, even though I sometimes get nervous because I know a lot of people who listen to my podcast are like educators, even though this is not a podcast just for educators, but it's like, oh gosh, how much can I let my freak flag fly? But like, I remember you being like, I was like, oh my gosh, like I can dance, but only if it's like a group of people or by myself when my husband goes to the gym and I feel like I'm really going to just have some fun. And I was like, oh my God, I could never, like, you are doing like all the sexy dancing, and I watch your stories just because like I am amazed. And I'm just going to say this. I'm a straight white woman. You are a gay Black man. And it's like some of the stuff you do, it's like, that turns me on, Vaughn.
I will say, especially recently, I've traveled to a couple countries, and when I was in Brazil in particular, I'm walking around and I was like, the girls are giving me more attention than the guys are.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, 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 yes. I mean, you have the body, you have the moves. Yeah, it's like, it cracks me up. I love it. I love it. I love it so much because you are like, I think I'm really comfortable in my skin a lot of the time, but I also think there's another layer to me that at times I kind of keep repressed. Not in direct relation to like dancing, but just I know that there's still part of Kim Strobel who's like kind of keep it in line now, girl, and so I really, really, really love that about you. It is so energizing. And I do think like next time we get to maybe be around each other, I'm thinking I need a private dance class from you.
Yeah. We'll go dancing. We'll go dancing.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I want to talk about mental health because that's the other thing that you have been incredibly transparent about. And so tell our audience a little bit about your experiences with your own mental health struggles and what that's looked like in the past. And then I want to talk about what it looks like now too.
Well, I feel in a way very blessed for my mental health struggle because I've had a lot of things on the way that have safeguarded me and kept me alive, and helped me with my mental health. And a lot of times it makes me sadder to know that there are people who didn't have those, those things to help them, such as I was a behavioral health specialist in the military, and I served as a behavioral health specialist in Iraq, seeing patients, and I had, a caseload and things of that such. And I'm getting my master's in social work with the hopes of becoming a social worker and getting a job working overseas with the military. But when I'm going to the VA and I'm trying to get care, I try to extend grace because I understand the system having worked in it. I know they don't have enough people and that they're overwhelmed with the amount of veterans. And I can only give them a little bit of grace for that because on the other side, I'm like, well, I need help. And I've been in a very heavy arguer. I literally don't mind throwing things if I need to. And I'll look and say, it's unacceptable that I would have to do this to get care. So I'm always up for people, trying to get help before it gets to that point. Because I've run a lot to the VA before I feel like, I'm erratic. Because then when I get there, no one wants to listen to crazy Black man, even though when you go, no one wants to listen to calm Black man either. And then I have to bring out angry Black man just a little bit. And they go, oh, okay,
we're paying attention now. And I want to
Mhm.
interrupt you a minute because I have a really dear friend and her husband was in the military and served. And he ended up dying 3 years ago. She found him in the bedroom. He had OD'd and he had tried multiple times to get the mental health support that he needed from the PTSD. And he just couldn't get, and again, I know that they're understaffed and everything, and there's probably a multitude of things we don't understand, but he could not get the behavioral mental health that he needed. And so my friend like wrote a very intense letter to the government on behalf of her dead husband, explaining what she had endured with him, how he had changed when he came back, and the downward struggle, how many times he had reached out for help and not been able to get it. So I hear you very clearly when you are saying that the supports we know are not in place to help veterans with that extremely important piece.
And the letters are funny enough. I love writing letters at this point because I know how effective they can be. I had to write a letter to get out of the military because at one point when they medically evacuated me from Iraq, because my unit was, a piece of crap. When I got home, I was in this medical holds unit for 2 years doing odd jobs. Just, they couldn't figure out if they wanted to kick me out or keep me. And for 2 years, I was just in this loop of just holding. And I had to write a letter to everybody. Let's say I wrote it to the generals, all the sergeant majors. And the first line said, I knew I should have killed myself in Iraq. And it was like, why am I sitting in this unit? And I'm not, and I was like, what makes me even angrier is that I can still be providing mental health care while you're figuring out where I need to go.
Yes.
But since you're not even doing that and you have me driving around the sergeant major or working in the mailroom,
yes.
Absolutely not.
And why did they have an issue with you?
For
they
me,
thought you were unstable or what?
Well, in my unit, once I had some mental health concerns come up and I was trying to talk, I had to talk to another, not my psychologist, another psychologist. And then there was other friction that happened. There's a whole bunch of people sleeping with other people. So all of that stuff.
Yes. And so all that, and they didn't want to have to deal with that. So they evacuate you, bring you back, give you kind of these jobs just to keep you busy. And so, yeah, you begin to advocate for yourself and every other person who needs that support. And so what are your mental health struggles? Is it depression? I know that at times you do have the suicidal thoughts. And I think it's so important that we talk about that. And I'm very transparent with my struggles too, Vaughn. I mean, I currently meet with a psychiatrist because for 28 years, I was on Zoloft for my panic disorder. And it has not been working well for the last several years. And so I wanted to really make sure that I had someone who could understand my panic disorder and transition me to another medicine. And so I'm in the throes and have been of that for about 6 months. And I have like no qualms about saying, I have a counselor in my life. He's been in my life for 20 years. The version of Kim Strobel in front of you and what I can achieve and do is he's one really big component of that because, sometimes people think you go to a counselor and who needs a counselor? And I'm like, every single person in the world needs a counselor, a coach, somebody who it's too hard to even know sometimes what our baggage is that we're carrying. But anyway, tell me what kind of your mental struggles are as far as diagnoses.
Well, I was diagnosed a while ago with bipolar 2. So I really don't have manic. It's more depressive episodes that I have. The best way to describe it for me is I have really high moments where everything feels amazing, or, it could be like, I'm talking to you and then I'm going to see my friend later on today. And then maybe I'll see a show and I'm like, that was a great day. Then I have to prepare myself. And I kind of allude to this sometime in my story. I have to prepare myself for the crash after that, where I wake up and I don't feel as well. I started seeing a lot of that when I did my semester at sea. And every time I would come back into port, my mood would shift. It was really interesting. We're in port. So I've been going to the VA for that. But I also have a sense that really affects my life really weirdly and uniquely. I've always called it dysthymia, which is just a sense of boredom. So I don't get to, say it to many people. And if you watch my stories, you would understand how crazy it would sound for me to say I'm bored. But I can say that I'm bored. And it's a weird thing, especially when I talk to therapists and everyone, they're like, oh my God, you're light. What do you do? I'm like, yeah, that's cool. Whatever.
Yeah. I think it's like, I was thinking about it with stress recently because one of the things I've noticed about myself is that when I'm not, like, every now and then I have these periods where I'm not quite as busy in my work. And I mean, Vaughn, what goes on in my head, like I start to get a little bit of depression when I'm not like super busy, and like I kind of feed off that adrenaline of feeling stressed and like, oh my God, I got to get this done. I got to get this done. Oh my God, I don't have enough time. And like, I might be super stressed, but I also know that like my brain is kind of hungry all the time for that like adrenaline rush. It's the same reason that I barely get anywhere by the hair of my chinny chin chin. I will have a hair appointment and be driving like a mad woman trying to get there just on the dot. And I'm like, oh my God, Kim, what, but I know like I'm addicted to it. So do you feel like it's like you're addicted to needing stimulation all the time? Is that, or adventure?
I don't really feel that way, especially after COVID. After quarantining, I really learned, because I traveled with myself, for a while anyway. So I was okay with me and myself. But I would always stay busy. And COVID really taught me to sit with myself and do nothing sometimes, So I didn't become obsessed with it. I like staying busy. It feels good. It keeps me active. It keeps me moving, which I love. But I will say I've gotten much better at it because I work on myself a lot. So I have exercise sitting down. I have exercise sitting in front of the TV and not moving. Like literally 3 hours before this, I was like, I could go do X, Y, and Z, or I could just be in the house. And I was like, sit. And I've learned to do that, and it's helped. But the big thing with mental health I always bring up, it's work. Sometimes you need to, I have a person in my head that'll read me and be like, what are you talking about? What are you? And I'm like, I literally have that. I have to like catch myself. And that's part of the work that a lot of people don't realize that you really need to invest in.
Yes, I know for me, and again, this is going to sound crazy, but I'm so self-reflective, and it's even the weekends, even though like I'm excited by like Sunday, I start slipping into, oh my God, I just need to start my work week. And I'm like, Kim, so I'm actually going to learn, I'm scheduled to go to Louisville and take a 4-day course on transcendental meditation so that I can learn to be more comfortable going within myself. And then my goal is, I'm 48, is to do the 500-mile walk across Spain by myself. It's the El Camino de Santiago. It should take me 5 to 6 weeks. And that is like really important because I've got to learn to sit with myself more. Now I want to go back to your bipolar 2. How is it like a cycle? Will you have so many high days and then you kind of know, okay, here comes the low, it should be coming anytime, or is it very sporadic?
It's sporadic. With me, I've worked so I can see it kind of coming. I like to say like the cloud moving, I can feel it or sense that I'm going to have an episode. So at this point, I'm able to kind of prep myself. So certain things that would usually help me sink lower, I have to, avoid or move around or stop doing them, or put things in place, such as calling a bunch of friends and making sure that I'm staying connected, even if it means calling every single one of my close friends, So, but I can see that much. And it's really sporadic. I had one when I landed in Brazil on New Year's Day. I was like, you're in Sao Paulo in Brazil. And I was just like, I don't care. I could die right now. Just like,
and that's how you really feel, right? Like you have had suicidal thoughts in the last year, even, right?
Yeah, and it's important because I haven't had too many of the technically suicidal thoughts. They've been ideations or ruminating thoughts of wanting to die, because I like to explain, like, I do love myself. I know that I'm amazing. I don't really have that self-confidence problem or the esteem or feeling helpless in that sense. It's just a matter of feeling over being in the world and having to go through the stuff that I go through. I'd rather just not. And for me, a lot of it is feeling like I've reached kind of a ceiling with life. It really doesn't feel like there's more than this. And it's like, if this is all that there is, it doesn't motivate me to want to go that much further in life. And take me out any moment.
Yes. And it's reminding me, I always tell this story. I mean, I really had that bathroom moment when I was 22 years old, and I was um, having panic attacks, every hour of every day, and didn't have a diagnosis, and just thought I was, just, I didn't know what the hell was wrong with me. I thought I had psychological problems, or I couldn't understand why I was 22 years old and I was nervous if my husband left the house or to walk around the block or whatever. And I always say that I really did have that moment where I curled up in the fetal position of my bathroom and I laid on the rug, and I was like, I'm not going to go get a gun. I'm not going to slit my wrist. Like, I just don't have that in me. But I pleaded with God to please just somehow take my life from me. Just do it, because it's really too hard to be where I am right now. And for me, I do remember, I don't know. I always say, I don't know if it was a voice or like an inner, I don't know what it was, but like, I did hear something that like spoke to me and basically said, like, you can't stop now. You are made for more. Like, you have to get up off that bath mat rug, and, you have to figure this out. And I don't know if it was divine intervention or what, but, of course I still have some struggles today with the panic and stuff, but I do understand what you're saying. I think in that it's not like we're going to do it, but we feel like we just kind of wish it would happen on its own. And that's how I felt at that time.
And I am a little bit on the point where, I have gotten to the point where I have started to consider suicide as like, I'm not just going to wait, but I've worked so hard to not get there that I have to work to not really make it an option, which is what I'm working towards. But I always feel like I'm like, that's an option.
Yes.
Even if I try not to say it is. So
yes. And when you're in those kind of down episodes, will they last days, weeks, hours?
It depends. It depends. The one that happened in Brazil, and it could have been because I had like, a vape pen. I was 7 o'clock. I was like, okay, I'm listening to music and I'm fine, since music helps so much. So usually it's not a long period of time at this point, because I've worked to shorten them.
Yes.
And I also think it's important, part of the work is having your soldiers in place to fight that war when you're going to go through it. So I know, and make sure that they actually work, not like those police officers who stood outside the school and did nothing, make sure they are, if this happens for me, I'm going to call a certain amount of friends. I'm going to make sure that I, don't isolate myself too much, or I'm going to make sure I'm eating, because not eating is a trigger and I won't even think about it and it just gets worse. So I have to put those things in place. So, and they become shorter and shorter. And then after a while, it's just like a little rainstorm, an annoying rainstorm, thunderstorm, sometimes hail, but it's like, okay, and it's over.
I think that's what I've had to, it's hard. And my counselor has been working. I don't even like to call him a counselor, because he's like so much more than that. He's like a spiritual mentor. He's just this biggest gift in my life. Well, not the biggest. He's pretty big. I always think, I can't say that's a lie. My son is the biggest gift of my life. And then I better throw my husband Scott in there, because he's a pretty good guy too. But he tries so hard, Vaughn, to get me to accept that this could be a lifelong struggle for me. And that, just like you said, the train will come again, but maybe there's 7, cargoes on it and not 10 the next time. And I really resist that, Vaughn. I am like, no, damn it. I'm going to heal this. Like, I'm going to get over this. I'm going to be, and I don't want to accept that my life might always be like this. And I think it causes distress, because I don't know, there's two sides of me. One says, Kim, you do a lot of thought work. There are ways to overcome these things, and you just keep at it, girl. You could actually heal yourself from this. And then the other part of me says, if I quit resisting, what would happen?
I think it's important to have, just like they say, SMART goals. Is, you have to think healing is kind of out the window in a way in my head. You can heal but say the scar will be there, or, you know, and the scar sometimes is susceptible to whatever. But it is a lifelong journey. It could come back. Certain things can change for me. I've been through times where I was like, I'm healed. But I also was smart enough to go, I have no stressors in my life right now.
Yes.
And
And
I was
those are
smart. If
definitely coming back.
somebody else literally would have stopped their meds at that point and said that I'm
Yes.
healed.
Yes.
And then the stressor comes, boom, and you still have to, I always think of it as a war. You still have to fight that war. So it's a constant journey that you go through life. It's just a matter of the effect on you, I think, is important. Especially for me, because so much of it has helped me mature and make me older and stronger, that it's like almost like bring it. But it does feel to me in a way that I was given this burden because I could carry it.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So one of the things he always says to me is, Kim, everybody has a vulnerability. Everybody does. Maybe somebody else's vulnerability is this. Everybody has a vulnerability. Your vulnerability is this anxiety disorder. I see the gifts of it, and I know that I would not be doing any of the work that I'm doing now had I not had that. But then when I had a relapse of it in 2018 and it kind of knocked me all the way back, I was kind of like pissed off big time. I was like, like, I'm out here doing good work because of this damn struggle that I had, and I'm using this shit for goodness in the world. And now you want to give me this again, damn it. And I got like, I was scared. I was angry. All of those feelings. And so I hear what you're saying, in that we do acknowledge the goodness that has come from these struggles that we have, which I think is so important too. Is, I always tell people, like, kids, especially students, they get given all these labels, right? They're ADD, they're ADHD, they're this and that and that. And many times that label is actually their special gift, right? Mm-hmm. It's their special sauce. And I think, like, as people can start to see what I consider, and I've considered it a weakness, Vaughn. I think that I overachieve to such a level because I still feel like I have this so-called weakness inside of me, and damn it, I'm going to stomp it out. Like, I'm going to show that weak little Kim, damn it, who I really am. And I'm going to and I recognize that I'm not there yet with being like kind to it. I try to be, but I'll just be honest. It's just, I'm not there yet, but I know I'm supposed to be like, this, Kim, it's okay. You have this struggle. You're still worth loving. It doesn't mean you're any less. I do all that talk. But it is something that I still struggle with today. Yeah.
In one of the Kanye West songs that he has, that I love, it's called "I Thought About Killing You Today."
That could have been my theme song for Scott yesterday, but keep talking.
Yeah. And even in the song, he says, like, I love myself. Like, I don't want to kill myself. I kill you, but I'm good. And in the end, he even says, bipolar, that's my superpower. That's my super strength. And I thought of that as a good example, because as much as Kanye is controversial and things pop up, his music is genius. And you see that struggle makes his music that genius. And that's a perfect example of it being people's superpower. Unfortunately, you do need to learn to hone it, just like any other superhero.
That's right. That's right. You can use it for good or bad. Right.
Point it in whatever direction, so it's not hitting other people and stuff like that. But it can for everybody. I believe that.
Vaughn, I so appreciate your willingness to go there. Of course, I knew this about you, and that's why I wanted to have you on as a guest. But I think that part of my reason for wanting to have this episode, and we hear a lot about this, but I'm not so sure that people really feel it. And to anybody listening, I think that's what I would want them to hear from this is, truly all of us have some type of mental health, for the most part, issue. Maybe it's not a coded diagnosis in the manual of whatever, but understanding that we don't have to feel less than because we have it. And I feel like, when I travel and I get on these big stages and I'm, dressed to the nines and got my heels on and looks, and, people are like, oh my gosh, she flies across the country. She steps on these stages. She empowers these people. Like, she just has this great life. And then within the first 10 minutes, I let them know about my struggles, because it is so easy for us to think that, people don't have these struggles, but in fact, we all have some type of struggle. And when I say this, I feel like I'm saying it to myself too, but continuing to work on understanding that I'm not a lesser person because of it. And I do recognize that a lot of the time, but every time a little bit, I slip back into feeling bad about it or frustrated as well, which I think is normal. But I really appreciate you. And I'll tell you, men are even worse at acknowledging this.
And I've dealt with a lot in the military, which is why I want to be able to work with the military. But it's been therapeutic. It's been therapeutic for me to be transparent. I know that people are going through things. People love talking to me. So people tell me all sorts of stuff. And I'm like, I'm not the only person feeling like that. Like, okay, so why are we whispering about this?
Yes. And I honestly think there's nobody better to do that work than the person who has had the genuine experience of that, which is why you will be an incredible gift to people in that regard. And so, oh my gosh, Vaughn. Well, I know there's like 72 more topics that I want to get into with you, but tell people where they can find you. And then I will place all of this in the show notes for them as well.
So the best place is my Instagram. The name is Deadlift Dance, Deadlift and then Dance. And then I have a Facebook fan page called Vaughn Carter, where you can see my performances coming up and where I'll be, and hopefully come to your city if you want to book me.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I mean, here's the thing. I know some of the people listening, like, I just know when they go to your seat, because people are not used to seeing such liberation. So like, they're going to just, okay, now I'm piquing them. Cause you know how when you tell somebody that they're going to be shocked, they're like, I'm freaking going to that Instagram page. But it's like, it is amazing to watch you sometimes. It's like, you are so yourself, and oh my God. And so like, I'm addicted to it, and people are going to just be like, what's this crazy side of Kim? And who's this friend of hers?
If it makes anybody feel better, both my grandmothers have looked at my Instagram, and my grandmother watches it. She skips over a couple pictures, but she watches my story. I love it when
you say, and yes, my grandma or my mom has viewed this. It's like, so good. All right. Thank you, Vaughn, for your transparency, for agreeing to do this. You are an absolute gift to so many people in this world. Thank you for being you.
Thank you.